Hi, I'm Diana Yoakley. I'm a peaceful parenting coach and mom of three, and I am delighted to give you the latest science backed research on child development, parenting, and to support you in showing up as the parent that you want to be. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today on our podcast. I have a special guest here with me today. I have here with me Tatiana Goded. Welcome, Tatiana. So great to have you here today.
Hi, thank you for having me here, Dajana.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here on an interesting topic. I think most of us most of us parents in our day-to-day parenting often don't take the time to reflect on. And so we're going to talk today about our reconnecting with our long forgotten dreams as individuals as we come into parenting, and how we can find more balance and get in touch with those passions, dreams that maybe we had pre-parenting or at a different time in our lives, and reintegrating that and reconnecting with that. And before we get into our discussion, I'm going to share a little bio about Tatiana. So Tatiana is a certified life coach, neuro-linguistic programming, and mindfulness practitioner. She's deeply passionate about helping women and men, and especially parents, in their midlife find themselves, discover their true purpose, and reconnect with their long forgotten dreams. Through high quality coaching sessions, Tatiana helps clients recover their inner joy and fulfillment, and a life where they can give priority to their own happiness and journey of self-discovery, and while parenting kids alongside. So I'm really excited to have you here today, and would love for you to elaborate a little bit more about how you came to do this work in your own journey and where you are today with it.
Yes. I've been through that myself. I think for most people, when we start thinking about our long forgotten dreams, especially from our childhood, is around our midlife, when we start, reconsidering our life, when we start thinking about, if we're on our right path, maybe thinking that, we might have lost a bit of joy, and remembering when we were kids, how much we loved to do something. It's usually related to art, so it could be how much we love painting, how much we love to play an instrument, to write stories, or to do a specific sport. And we start wondering, what happened to that? We have abandoned it. Why don't we have that in our lives? And we start remembering how much joy it would bring us. Um, so that's the moment when we start thinking, oh, I would love to go back to that. And we have no idea how to start. Now we have
Yeah.
busy lives, especially, as parents, if we have small parents, or even, small kids, or even kids with neurodiversity, or, we have a busy life, we have a full-time job, and we have no idea how to bring that back into our lives. So that's the moment when we start maybe trying. Lots of people try to bring it into their lives, but they start having several obstacles. One of them is related to mindset and limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. What am I doing this? They start questioning themselves, and they start thinking about, how good or not good they are. They try to maybe do too much. They have too much expectations, maybe, and they leave it. And sometimes the problem could be also the people around them, because it could well be that the partner doesn't know about this, because many people just abandoned it when they went to uni, for instance, or a long time ago. And people around them don't know how important that is for them. So it really needs to come from you. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I've gone through that myself. And one of my big passions has always been writing. I loved to write stories when I was little. It was my passion. I love to just imagine different worlds and writing stories. And I really stopped writing when I went to high school. There was too much to do, too much to study. And I really stopped it almost completely until after I finished my PhD. Actually, The day after I finished my PhD, I enrolled on an online course on creative writing. And I find it quite fascinating thinking about it, how it seems to be like I was giving myself permission to go back to my passion when I had finished my studies. And it's kind
Yeah.
of ridiculous, but in a way, many people go through that.
I wanted to highlight that. I think you're spot on with the permission piece. And
Mm,
it's I think culturally there's this like I don't have permission to do that for myself, and then I think we embody that and it kind of becomes part of us. So then a part of us, and I like to talk about kind of our parts and internal family systems, but I think a part of us is kind of that like gatekeeper, that police person that's like you don't have permission. And maybe it was cultural, like culture didn't give us permission, or that was what we learned from the modeling around us, but then eventually we are the ones that our own worst enemy. And I think that's what you're talking about with the mindset. Then that part of us that won't give us permission for the other parts to spend time on this and to be have freedom to choose, we our own mindset then is driven by this powerful protector of um, especially I think parenting and as mothers, the to-do list is so long and never ending. It's like you could always add a few extra things on there to tidy things up a little bit because there's just more work than one person can ever do. So how do you give yourself permission for something that isn't a requirement? It feels like a luxury almost.
exactly. And sometimes when um, things get difficult, especially it could be as parents, we start realizing, I mean, I've been told by different people how important it is to take care of yourself, you know, to be a good parent. A good parent is a happy parent. I've been hearing it for a long time, and I've been trying, kind of like saying, okay, during my lunch break, I'm going to go for a walk, and finding how wonderful that was for me. And then something would happen the following day, things would become busy, and I would stop doing it. And without really realizing the benefits I had, because I was a better parent that evening, because I had taken time for myself to do my exercise or something for myself. And for me, it has really been when things have become a bit more tough. Like I have a kid who has recently been diagnosed with neurodiversity, and things became really tough. And it was back then, that moment, when I really realized I need to take care of myself because this is essential, to keep going. And I came across a very wise woman who told me something that has really stuck with me, which is it's not only about filling up your cup, it's about fill up your cup and give from the overflow. And that completely knocked me down. So I realized that if I would, I don't know, go for a walk or write a bit or do something for myself, and then I would deal with my daughter, if um, my tank was completely empty and I gave that little bit to myself, and then I would give that to my kid. In a way, there was resentment, like anger, like the little bit I had for myself was gone. So actually realizing that if we work on giving to ourselves in a way that actually we fill up our cup enough to have that overflow, then there would be energy for both. There's energy for yourself. You feel better, you're more joyful, you're a better parent, and you have enough to give to others without resentment because you have plenty for you. So it's this kind of abundance mindset, and it has really, really made a difference for me. And in a way, this has helped me give myself permission to actually do the things that I'm passionate about. It doesn't mean I'm abandoning my daughter. On the contrary, I'm being a better mother because I'm giving things to myself, and then I have plenty, I'm happier, and then I can give to my daughter as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love that framework and the theory around it. And I think a lot of parents would agree with that, and makes sense. It's logical. The math adds up. And then the reality can be that when you know, get off the podcast or stop watching the video, the kids are calling, somebody's having a meltdown. And in the day-to-day grind, it can be hard to build a framework around consistency and creating this routine almost. Um,
Mm,
it's like we agree intellectually, but we just can't seem to make it practically relevant sometimes, especially when we have, just children that need more of our attention. So yeah, I wonder how you would help parents bridge that gap. Yeah, if you want to talk a little
yeah.
bit about that, how to make it more how to start making it more practical.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's several things to work on. One is that we kind of intend to do too much to start with. It's like, okay, when I was little, I used to love to paint, but I don't have time. And sometimes what you're thinking about, you're imagining the perfect scenario, that you would have 2 hours in a row, you would have your perfect space to do your painting without anyone disturbing you, and life would be wonderful. And that usually isn't the case, right? Especially if you have little kids and, a busy life, you have your job, it just doesn't work. So
Yeah.
we need to start slow. And slow means, well, start with what is achievable for you, but even if it's just 15 minutes a day, start with that. And it looks like I'm not going to do anything in 15 minutes, but that is going to give you the momentum. It's going to start giving you that sense of fulfillment that you need to then start building up from there, and making it longer, and sometimes um, one thing that I usually recommend is actually to start early in the morning, waking up, I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour earlier, and doing that for yourself. And the reason for that, first, is that you you are successful, right? You've done it first thing in the morning, and no matter how much, how the day goes after that, you've done your thing for yourself. Um, and it's also easier because, the day could, you know, go to custard. You won't have time to do anything. Like, for instance, on the weekends, I used to tell myself years ago on Saturday, okay, I need to do these chores. I need to take care of my kid. And I also want to do this thing for myself. I would do everything that I needed to do first. And then what happened at the end of the day, I was too exhausted to do that thing for myself. So it would never work. Whereas if you do your thing for yourself, even if it's a tiny bit of time, then you feel like, you filled up your cup. And that is related to the concept that I came across some years ago of your 3 MITs, most important things to do every day. So this is around doing 1 to 3 most important things in your day. But these most important things are not a chore, are not taking care of your kid, are not something related to your work, are something to fill your cup. So it could be exercise if that fills your cup, no, if it is something that you feel you need to do. Could be exercise, could be meditation, could be your passion. I'm writing for 15 minutes. I'm, drawing. I am playing an instrument. Anything that fills up your cup. So,
Yeah, for me would be like sitting outside if it's a sunny day, sitting in the sun for like 15 minutes because
yeah,
that really it's not work, it's just relaxing. And I know I mean, I'm not trying to get skin cancer, but like 15 minutes of sunlight is vitamin D and like it lifts our mood. So something as simple as just stepping outside the walls of the house, if it is conducive to nice weather, right? Or just like maybe even a
exactly.
walk, which could be a stretch for some people going for a walk every day. But I think at minimum, maybe like stepping outside and getting some fresh air, even if the kids follow you, you could still achieve
Mm,
it together, right?
yeah, or being in nature, just sitting
Yeah.
down in silence, looking at the sea, or something
Or
that
even
you love
sitting
to
down on
do.
a chair and just sitting down and having like a drink and just not doing anything. A glass of
Exactly. Or
water or
reading a
relaxing on
book,
the couch and
or
putting your feet up. Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
some
Or doing
nothing
nothing. Yeah.
personal,
Doing something or doing nothing. Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. And thinking about each day what you would do for yourself, even if it's just one thing, that really makes a difference. And it helps with filling up your cup. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think that's great about first thing in the morning because it's like if the kids are still asleep. So it's kind of like they're not in your space yet. They're not demanding things. Also, if they're still in
Mm,
school, if they're going to school, that's another opportunity. If you're not working the whole entire time that they're gone, if you are working,
mm.
can you use your lunch breaks, which are legally required, hopefully around the world, to do something just for yourself, even just during that little lunch break, if you can do something that's, on the go.
Exactly. So just the time that works for you.
Yeah.
But trying to be consistent and trying to, make sure that you're doing that for yourself and noticing the benefits, noticing how you're more present there for your loved ones, how you feel, you know, you feel like you've just done a little bit, but that makes a huge difference. You feel more joyful. You feel like, you know, things are more bright just by doing that little thing that is related to something that you love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's neuroscience, like positive neuroplasticity that backs this up. When you can enrich and deepen the experience of the reward, it actually rewires your brain for more of the same. So just like
Mhm.
criticism and negativity bias wires us for more criticism and more judgment and more negativity bias, the opposite is also true. It's basically what you
Mhm.
repeat gets faster and more efficient in your brain. So if you can link that, if you can embody more of that experience, like sit with it a little bit longer, right, and let it like absorb more, and then like you said, recall that this is like, try to link it in your mind even, well, today was a better day, I wonder what contributed to that, and intellectually connecting that back to those activities. It's not just a felt experience, but it's also kind of a logical connection to its mindfulness, but also like, oh, there's a reason this was different. It wasn't just random. Like I don't know why it was different. It was just better. It's not random like that, right? It gives you like
Mm,
verification that this is actually working. Is that what you would recommend?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a huge difference. Going from negativity bias to starting to notice the benefits and starting to want more. Because
Yeah.
then what happens then is that you try to find, you know, a longer gap in time or space,
Yeah.
where are you going to practice this? Where are you going to have your painting tools? How are you going to arrange it? How would you do during the weekend? And you start to have, more of that time, whatever makes sense to you and whatever is reasonable and realistic, but also realizing how important it is for you. And what happens, kind of magic starts to happen because people around you notice that you're happier, and realize, start to link it to that mommy time. This is my mommy time where mommy is going to be for 1 hour on Saturday at this time doing her thing. And they start realizing that when mommy comes back, mommy's more present, is more happy. Things just flow more easily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great role modeling for our kids as well, specifically related to independent play and kind of getting
Mm,
lost in their own creative world and flow, that sense of flow, right? I think it's great role modeling because I think nowadays a lot of parents struggle with screens and kids wanting to watch screens for entertainment, and they think it's a creative experience, but we know from the research that screens really kind of disable the creativity because it's feeding you everything. You don't have to actually use your imagination. It bypasses those circuits in the brain.
yeah.
So I think it's great role modeling for a more mindful life, but also a life in the real world more versus the digital world.
Mm, yeah.
Unless your art, your hobby might be like digital, content creation, which is fine as well because it's an active process. It's not just
Mm,
sitting on the couch and watching screens where it's taking
mm.
away that active role that you're playing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's usually something creative, and that's
Yeah.
because somehow all over the world, the educational system focuses on, the left brain and
Yeah.
everything related to logic and so on. And it seems that anything related to art is not that important. So you
Mm.
start not giving it importance. And the reason that people abandon their passions could be very varied. You need to focus on your studies, but sometimes it could also be that someone at some stage told you you were not good at what you were doing. So there's a
Yes.
lot of, limiting beliefs and a lot of mindset issues behind it, behind why you have abandoned doing that. And that's also work that I do. I work with clients on identifying the source of their limiting belief, when it actually started, how it started, and how to shift that to,
Hmm.
at that moment. I don't know, maybe a teacher told you, oh, this is not important in your life, or you're not good at that. You better stop doing it. And then you have that voice in your head that tells you, I'm not good at this. So then you forget about it. So identifying where that started, what's the source of this, and learning how to shift that, it actually helps to bring it back, because sometimes people just have blockages around something that
Yeah.
happened in their childhood, and that's the reason why they have abandoned it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I think that's important. And so as parents kind of reflect on this, what would be a great starting place? Let's say that you haven't really made time for like a hobby, or what your personal interests might be, or maybe you've just kind of lost touch with like all of those extra things because you're just always doing the requirements of day-to-day life. So what is a
Mhm.
good starting place? Would you say like, you know, talking to a friend or somebody that knows you, or journaling? How do you even start to remember what you might have been interested in? And I think some people, it's like, oh, I don't remember much of my childhood, especially if there was a lot of
Mhm.
complex trauma. It's not abnormal for people to say, I don't remember much of my childhood. I don't remember what I did, but they actually did do things, and those memories are in there. It's just like you said, they're blocked
Mhm.
off. So what are some ways that people can begin some of this work on their own? Some
Yeah,
obviously it's much faster and more beneficial to do work with a professional like yourself, but just start somewhere. What is a good place to start?
yeah. So maybe before looking into, our childhood, I just like to say that for some people it's something they've always wanted to do. They've always wanted to take dancing classes or something like that. So that could also be, your passion. So it doesn't need to be something that you used to love as a child. It could be that you can't, as you were saying, you can't remember anything you loved back then. So it could also be something that you've always loved to do, that you're drawn to. In terms of how to start, I would recommend a couple of things. I would recommend meditation, just giving yourself that space and that silence, and just being able to, let your thoughts do what they need to do, but eventually get deep into your inner self to actually find that passion that you used to have. And another good way, as you were saying, is journaling. So trying to um, put in there um, everything that you think um, you love to do. Just write about things that you love. Just let it flow and see where it takes you. Um, um, Also, walking in nature, just finding that silence and just getting out from the busy life in a way that can help you just tap into your inner self and finding out what you love to do. So that's a big thing. And another important thing is just the moment, and that's what happened to me, the moment when you actually give it that importance, when you actually realize how important this is. As we were saying before, how much benefits it might have to you. So sometimes that moment only happens when you start working on your passion. It usually happens then. Or maybe you just have connected so nicely with the moment when you were doing that as a child, and you actually are visualizing. Visualization is actually a great tool as well. Visualize that thing that you love to do when you were a child, and um, look at all the senses, what you see, even if you're almost like you're sitting watching a movie of yourself when you were a child, and look at as many details as you can, what you're seeing, who you are with, what can you smell, what can you feel, especially, and tap into that, and get really close to that. And the second thing, as I was saying, is just getting realizing how important that is in your life, either by tapping to how much you loved it as a child, or by starting to do it. That is the moment, and I like to share my own journey with my own passion for writing, how I actually went back to it, because it was very hard for me. And the reason I'm doing this for others is that I wish I had had the help of someone, to really walk with me, with bringing it back to my
Yeah.
life.
Hmm.
So after I took that course, that first course, which I loved it, but when I finished the course, I stopped writing. I was doing it kind of for a purpose. Someone was asking me to do some assignments, and then I was doing that for them. So I wasn't doing it for myself, and that's the inflection point. Um, so years later, yeah, and that's something interesting that might happen with moms, and I've recently learned about it with the wonderful book. What is it called? The Rainbow Path by Lucy Pierce, where I've actually learned that it happens with many moms around pregnancy. Somehow something happens in our hormones when we become really creative, and that actually
Wow.
happened to me. I started writing, and I was so inspired writing when I was pregnant of my daughter. And short after, I found out about a short story competition. And I decided to take part in that, just out of the blue.
Hmm.
And I won the second prize. And that gave me such a
Wow.
boost.
Yeah.
Wow, I can do this. Wow, I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just a happy story from then on. No, no, it was a long journey after that. So again, after the short story competition, I stopped writing. Um, a couple of years after, I was feeling that sense of, I miss that. I want to do it. So I took another course on creative writing, and I absolutely loved it. I had my one evening a week when I was going to the library. I was doing my work. I enjoyed every bit of it. The course finished, and I stopped writing. And then I took another course because I was missing it. And the same would happen. 3 times it happened to me. And the moment of change, and that's where I want to get, is when I finished my third course, which was on writing a novel. And I absolutely loved it. And I said, I'm not stopping writing, because then is when I realized this is giving me so much joy. I'm a better person because I'm writing every day. I love to do it. This is important for me. Why would I stop? So it took me several years and several tries to
Yeah.
get to that moment. And then
Hmm.
is when on purpose, I found time each day to write.
Hmm.
And what happened then is that I decided to keep going, and I actually wrote my first novel. And I
Yeah.
recently published my first novel, and I'm really happy that I went on that journey. But the important thing that I would like to say is that the really important moment for me was two things. One is when I said, I'm not stopping writing. This is important for me. And the
Hmm.
second is the moment I gave myself permission to say, I
Hmm.
am a writer. I wasn't a published author. I was just writing every day for myself. Those were the important parts. It doesn't matter if you don't, if you don't publish a book. It doesn't matter if you, don't exhibit your paintings anywhere. The important thing is that inside yourself, you are that creative person. That is what matters to you. That is what is
Hmm.
really important, that you've inside yourself, you have that passion with you.
Yeah, and it's almost like that you've accepted and given yourself permission to be a part of you is that, and you're not rejecting it, you're not trying to minimize it, and you're not closing it off, but you're welcoming it as one part of you. Like, I am a writer, and I'm also a mom, and I'm also, whatever, an employee, but without shame or without regret or minimizing that part of you.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what happened then is because it had, been so hard for me to have that in my life. And I realized it would have been so much easier if someone would have been there to give me the framework, what I needed to do to bring that back. Then is when it became my passion to help others to bring that back. Because sometimes we think that to find happiness, when we're feeling, the typical midlife crisis, to find happiness, we need to completely change our lives, and sometimes it's the case. Sometimes work is not work, it's not working, and you need to change your career. It could be a big shift in your life, but sometimes, or many times, it actually starts with something small. And what is easier than something that already brought you joy in your life, as a child? That is the easiest, or something you've always been drawn to. Why not starting with that? And why not starting small and noticing the benefits? And for many people, that passion that you brought back to your life could become your career. You suddenly realize you don't like your job anymore and you want to become a painter. And there's so many amazing stories of people that have done just that. They've brought their passion, and their passion has become their career. But that
Yes,
starts
yes.
with these little steps, with the small steps, when you actually realize how important it is, how much you used to love it, how much you want it back in your life, and you give yourself permission to include that in your life because it gives you joy, and it actually brings joy, to your loved ones as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've certainly, talked to plenty of moms, particularly that have felt like they don't even do anything fun and they don't
Mhm.
really know who they are anymore, right? Like kind of losing yourself in parenting. And like you said, that midlife crisis or that kind of middle age in life. Um, that often can be an opportunity for individuals to reflect on this piece. And I think what I've seen many moms that do start to incorporate this in their life, what's helpful is seeing other people living those dreams that they wish they had. So like maybe you've always had a thing for writing and you just made a new friend that is a writer. You meet somebody that's a
Mhm.
writer and you get to know them and you're like, wow, like she's doing that. That's so cool. Like, I mean, I wish I could do that. And it's like, well, what's stopping me?
Mhm.
Maybe as a kid I couldn't because I didn't have the support from the adults around me, or I didn't have the savviness or skills in like, young adulthood to figure it out. But now I'm in my midlife and I'm the adult and I am one of the most knowledgeable people on the planet, right? Like where you're at your like kind of, most mature state intellectually. And so it's like now what do I want to do with this? Is this something that I want to explore further? But I think it can be quite infectious in a good way when we bump into people on accident or on purpose that are living that in their lives. And maybe not that they're a full-time writer, but they've given themselves permission to write, even though they're doing something else for a job. And um, are there other ways that you've seen it kind of help people kind of get started? We talked about kind of reflecting, and then again, like this, like kind of like exposing yourself to more people that like your types of hobbies and maybe befriending them. I mean, we know with children, the way that children make friends is with common interests. That's how, like, sign up for something that they like, and the kids that they meet there could be very good
Mhm.
matches for friendship because even though they're different people, they have this activity that they both enjoy together.
Yes, yes, that's very powerful as well, being part of a community with common interests. Um, because, you kind of help each other, you kind of accountability partners of each other, right? And in a way, you make sure that each of you is, including that passion in their everyday life.
Yeah.
So that is very, very powerful as well, being able to connect with someone, either a friend or a group or something that is actually passionate about your own passion. Or
Yeah.
taking a course. So,
Yeah.
actually, one of the activities that you could do, if you, I don't know, love to do painting, you could paint by yourself, but one thing that could be very powerful is taking part in a course, taking a course where you will meet people with a common interest, and it would actually give you a push into, oh, I can do that. And also, it's helpful to have your time, you know that this day of the week at this time you're doing your painting. So for some people, that's the only way to include it in their life, to just take a course. That could be a really powerful way of doing it, as long as when the course has finished, you make sure you include it in your life. So it doesn't
Yeah.
happen the same as me. You finish the course and that's it. And there's also that um, doing it because your teacher is asking you to do it. When it's really
Hmm.
powerful, it's because you want to do it yourself. So you need to be
Yeah.
careful with that side of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this conversation. As we're talking, I'm kind of reflecting on my own journey and the various interests I've had in childhood. And interestingly enough, one of the passions I've had later in childhood and into early life was psychology. Now, the thing is, I never became a psychologist. I never became a
Mm.
psychiatrist, even though that was something I considered, getting a psychology degree and maybe doing that. And that's not the route I ended up taking, but there was still this interest in the study of the human mind and how our brains work. And interestingly enough, taking a parenting course later on after I had kids for necessity, for helping me become a better parent, for helping my children, one thing leads to another. And now here you are exposed to childhood psychology, to adult psychology and parenting. And I love how you're saying the consistency of keeping up with it once the course ends. Well, what better way to keep up with the psychology of parenting other than than to start a business of your own, right? Like starting a business and having a weekly newsletter and having a membership with parents and a course and building a framework and structure in my life where this is actually doesn't have to go away if I choose for it not to, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
building your life around your interests in a way that can be financially beneficial, but also very passionate and rewarding for
Mm.
you. And it has like multiple other benefits, like you said, not just the joy you bring home after enjoying that activity, but also in my case, it directly benefits my family, particularly my
Mm.
children.
Mm.
So it's very much like a win-win-win. Um,
Mm.
but the same can be true with like photography or, sports or cooking. All of these things are so beneficial to our children and our family units, even if it's not a shared interest that our kids have, but it's still a way of life and the arts, and even the left brain. I mean, I like spreadsheets, and Sudoku and things like that. And that
Mm.
can also be a passion, right? Because it's
Oh,
something that
yeah.
you can get deep on and get into the flow of.
Yeah. Whatever you feel is your passion. As long as it comes from you, it doesn't come from, an external source. And it also helps your children realize that mom is actually, a separate entity with her own passions, her own, things that she loves to do. Um, and yeah, all this is especially important for women and moms in particular who tend to be people pleasers. So going to that point of realizing this is important for me, that is the big one for moms. It's really, really hard to get to that point. Um, so tapping into all of this that we have discussed today, doing some journaling, doing some meditation, or joining groups with similar interests could help you get to that point of giving
Yeah.
yourself permission to do that thing that you're passionate about and finding a way to include it in your daily life.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, often I find with parents, they might not do something for themselves that's good for them, but they will more often than not try to do something for their kids that's good for their kids.
Mm.
So
Mm.
if that's our motivation as parents, is our children's well-being, how can you reframe then, I think, as a parent, right? How can you reframe that for yourself? How can you joining this and doing this passion for yourself support your kids to
Yeah.
start, right? As a starting place. And I know you're saying you're not doing it for your kids, you're doing it for you ultimately, but to get started, to start on that reward loop,
Mm.
to get the
Yeah.
benefit of that experience, it might be helpful to figure out a more like, it's kind of like do you have like the upfront payment for it? Like, what is a way to how can you justify it to start? And then it takes on a life of its own because it's actually more than that. But to kind of bypass that permission piece, that might be something.
Exactly. And one thing is around realizing how you're doing it initially for yourself, but you're also doing it for your kids because you're more present. You're going to be, a happier parent. And by that, you're going to be a better parent. And I think it was around when my daughter was born, a friend of ours told us, um, you need to be a happy parent to be a good parent. And it has taken me years to actually realize how profound that is, because it's around what we talked about before, about filling up your cup. What happens if the only drive you have is around taking care of others? It doesn't need to be your kids. It could be before having kids, you were always pleasing others. And there's a moment when you don't have enough for yourself and you start feeling even resentment. And the resentment is not against others, it's against not having that minimum energy for you to keep going. So actually, this is what this passion is doing. It's helping you, give you that energy, that that joy that you need to keep going as a person and to be a better person for them, for your loved ones, for your kids, for your partner, for your family, for your friends. um, but the only way to keep your cup full is actually by giving something to yourself, and that is that something. And usually um, the only permission that we give to ourselves is through exercise, because we know it's good for our bodies, and so on. um, but many times that's not enough. The exercise is good. Exercise is really important. But it's almost like another chore. It almost becomes like another chore. I need to go for a walk because this is
Yeah.
important for me. Some people get dogs, so that, they need to go for a walk. Um, but there's that, what about me? And that taps very nicely into the
Mm-hmm.
midlife crisis. Why am I not happy? What is missing in my life? That is that, what is missing in my life. And it usually isn't only about, going for a walk. For some people, it would be really important. For everybody, it's important. But what I'm trying to say is that there's usually something else,
Yeah.
something
Mm-hmm.
else that used to be a passion or that you've always been passionate about. And it could well be cooking, as you were saying before. Your kids directly benefit from that.
Yeah.
But you're doing it not only for your kids, but because you love it. It's a passion of yours. And you start, taking cooking lessons, or, just playing with it and
Yeah.
enjoying
Yeah.
it. That's the
Mm-hmm.
point, that you are enjoying it and you're feeling um happier. You're feeling like you're filling up your cup. That's the
Mm-hmm.
truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you said like when you're a happier parent, happier person, you can be a better parent. And I know that's classic couples advice as well for like partnerships and marriages. A happy person is going to make a better partner than an unhappy person. Yes, there's other things that can impact that, but at a minimum, each person needs to get their own needs met on their own about what their needs are, what they want, what they wish to some degree, right?
Mm.
Without just over giving to the other person or without just expecting them to make you happy all the time, right? Like, how can I take care of myself so that I can be a standalone, sustainable, resilient person, and then I can engage in a relationship with another person without resentment and without, yeah. Amazing. So
Exactly.
many great points. Yeah. Is there anything else we missed? I know there's a lot more we could dive into, but
Mm.
For purposes of kind of the general ideas here. Anything else you'd want to add? And then I'd love for you to share resources that you have for parents today listening and where they can find out more about your work.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered more or less everything we wanted to talk about. So I think, yeah, I think
Great.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, maybe if you want to share a little bit about, I think you have a freebie for our parents today, and we'll link that below the podcast as well, or a resource
Oh,
for
yeah.
them.
Yeah, I will send you the link. So I have prepared for listeners what I call your essential kit to recover your dreams. And that has a few first steps. Some of them we have been talking about them today, about what you can do to recover your dreams. So it includes several things, a small kit. It also includes a workbook to start, journaling, asking questions around your passions. um, I have included 3 meditations there with a little guide. I have included the first 2 chapters of my book because my book is interesting. I've actually only realized, not that long ago, that my book, the essential, topic of my book is about women recovering the past dreams, and,
Yeah.
and working on their own inner journey. So it's interesting that what I've written about is actually what I'm working on at the moment. So if people are interested, they can read the first 2 chapters. I've also included some compelling stories of people that have recovered their passions after their 40s. Yeah, and I think that's what is included. So I will send you the link if people are interested in getting that.
Yeah.
And I'll also send you my website if anyone is
Yeah.
interested, and that has links to social media if anyone is interested in knowing about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm preparing, and you could get informed by joining my email list. If you get the essential kit, you will join my email list, and you will be informed on when my online course. I'm preparing a 5-week online course on recovering your passions that will tap into all of these. Looking into what your passions were. Uh, why you left them behind, working on your mindset, on your limiting beliefs, taking some action steps, and making sure you're included in your life. So it will include everything
Mhm.
in a step-by-step process. And I still don't have a date for when this will start, but I'm hoping it will be sometime soon, and I will announce it as well in my
Great.
newsletters.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Gives people something to start off with and kind of
Mm,
begin exploration. I love this idea that it's hard to do this alone, so it is important to have community and to have a corner on the internet that is focused on this, so that you can stay
mm,
connected with where you are on your own journey and not kind of forget about it for the next 3 years and then remember again, like, oh, I never did that, right? So that
yeah.
accountability and connection to resources like these is amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was really great talking today, and I hope we've inspired at least one person in the audience to reconsider how can you add this dimension, I think, back to your life, because I think we are creative individuals and more complicated than we often realize, and bringing some of this joy back into our life, I think, can benefit parenting and our kids ultimately as well. So
Yeah,
thank
it
you
could
so
be
much for your
life
wisdom.
changing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Diana, for having me here today.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Appreciate it.